All right. Hello, everyone. This is My Two Cents. Welcome back to my channel. Today, I'm going to be doing a live stream to talk about a subject that I actually brought up on yesterday's live stream. But it was just such a rich example of how even the people who are the loudest critics of capitalism can't escape the basic realities of it, the basic realities of economics. And of course, in this case, we are talking about everyone's favorite freshman Congress representative, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Now, I'm a little late to the party on this one. This was a news story at the very beginning of the month, and I know there are a number of other libertarians that have already talked about it, but I just wanted to quite literally put in my 2 cents. So, for those of you who may not be familiar, at the beginning of the month, or even a little bit before, I don't remember the exact date this came out, but Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez's campaign announced a new website where they will be selling merchandise to fund her campaign. And among the merchandise are, the standard kind of merch you'll find: t-shirts, sweatshirts, hats, all of which promote political messages that are in line with the politics and economics of Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. The item that really caught headlines, though, was this sweatshirt that you see on the screen that has the words "Tax the Rich" and in the bottom AOC written on it. For sale for a whopping $58. Now, according to Newsmax, this actually was on sale for $65. The price has simply been lowered to $58. And of course, it immediately caught headlines. The reason being, AOC is trying to promote a political message, namely her message being that it is evil to be rich. AOC has said in the past that a system that allows billionaires to exist is itself immoral. The rich are not paying their fair share in taxes, especially given the fact that we have so many living in extreme poverty here in the United States. And it is simply immoral for people to be billionaires. The government must step in and force those billionaires to give up their money so that the poor can have a better life. She's promoting that message, and she's going to promote it with merchandise that say things like "tax the rich." Of course, the irony being, she's going to promote this by selling it at a price that the average person that she's trying to help is not going to be able to afford. I mean, how many people do you know earning minimum wage who are going to want to spend $58 on a sweatshirt, especially when they can probably get a different sweatshirt for, between $5 and maybe $20 at the most, that's going to keep them just as warm. And heck, probably even buy some glitter or paint and put "Tax the Rich" on the front of that yourself for far less than it costs to make $58. And a lot of people called her on that. Of course, AOC defended herself, so I'm going to pull up an article here from The Independent that talks about that. And in this article from The Independent, AOC defends herself. Sorry about that. Let me get to the right spot here. And her defense is that these sweatshirts are made in America, they are union printed, and that's what it costs to pay everyone a decent wage along the way. All right, now we'll just go back to the sweatshirt screen because I'm sure everyone would rather look at that. But her defense of herself seems pretty logical, probably, to her supporters. Well, the reason these sweatshirts are so expensive is because we actually paid people a living wage in order to make them. And presumably, that's $15 an hour or something similar. She's a big advocate of raising the federal minimum wage from where it currently is at $7.25 to something more like $15 an hour. Of course, what's the irony here? The irony is that AOC, there's a reason that AOC is charging $58 for these, and I think anyone who understands basic economics probably knows what it is. It is that in a free market, the only reason any two people make an exchange is because they are both better off having made the exchange. In other words, if an employer hires a person and decides to pay him, I don't know, $8 an hour, $10 an hour, whatever the wage is, the person only takes the job because he's convinced that the money he makes at that job is more valuable than the time he spends at that job. If, for example, an employer says, "I'll hire you to work this job and I'll do it, for $10 an hour." If the person is convinced that their labor is worth more than $10 an hour and that someone else can pay them more elsewhere, they're going to say, "Thank you, but I'm not interested. I'll go work for somebody else." In any case, they're convinced that their time is worth more than $10 an hour. Otherwise, they wouldn't otherwise they would have taken the job. If somebody takes the job, they're communicating that even if they'd like to make more, and I'm sure everyone would like to make more, but the fact that they take the job communicates that the time they spend working that job is worth more that money is worth more to them than the time they spend working at the job. In the same way, the business owner is only going to pay them that much money if they are convinced that at some point they're going to make more money than they paid them. Profit is simply the amount of money a person spends to produce a good or service. That good or service must be spent for more than that amount of money, or else the person in charge is no better off than they were before. And the fact that AOC is selling a sweatshirt for $58 when you ought to be able to find a sweatshirt like this for $25, maybe $30 at the most, shows that by paying more to the workers, in order for AOC's campaign to make money, they have to charge more for the sweatshirt. And as a result, the extremely poor, the people that AOC is supposedly standing up for, are not going to be able to purchase this sweatshirt. So does AOC really believe her propaganda, or is even she captured by the free market? Because she thinks AOC at large wants, not only is she paying her workers $15 minimum wage, she wants the government to step in and force businesses across the board to pay more to their workers. You know, you're only paying your worker $7.25 an hour. Well, I say you have to pay your worker $15 an hour. And of course, whenever that legislation goes through, all the workers cheer until they realize that one of two things always happens. Either the business fires a bunch of its workers, just lays them off and does more with less in order to recuperate those costs, or they raise the cost of their products in order to recuperate the cost of having to pay a higher wage, which is clearly what AOC did in this case. But what none of these left-leaning people ever seem to think about is the fact that once the price of the goods and services is raised, how much better off are the people whose wages are now higher? Because it may be the case now more people are making $15 an hour and they feel better about themselves, but as soon as they discover that the real purchasing of power of their money isn't any better because the costs of goods and services are higher, well, they're no better off than they were before. So now they advocate that the minimum wage needs to be $30 an hour. And then the cycle repeats again and again. So AOC's tax the rich sweatshirts ironically show that her policies taxing the rich are not going to actually make life better for anyone else. The only in a free market, the only reason that the rich people are rich is because they are creating goods and services that are improving the lives of so many people, that's goods and services that they're able to accumulate those high levels of wealth. The high levels of wealth that they are accumulating communicate that the people they are selling products to are that much better off, that that many people are willing to buy it. Unless, of course, you directly steal your money from the consumers, but that's what government does, not what businesses do. So I just could not resist but to point this out. This is AOC has truly outdone herself this time. I mean, by all means, she is free to sell her tax the rich sweatshirts for $58 if she wants to, but she's only demonstrated that her economics don't work in the process. And I would seriously love to know how many of her extremely poor constituents are actually spending $58 to buy these sweatshirts. I would anticipate not that many. So that's really all I have to say on the subject. Everybody still there? All right. I suppose the one downside to doing live streams is that sometimes you end up with technical difficulties, but it appears I am back. Let's get this sweatshirt back up on the screen. That's all. Anyways, as I was saying, that's about all I really had to say on the subject. Let's go ahead and take a look at some of the comments here, though. Mikhail the Stray Cat says, so AOC says it's evil to make X amount of money while simultaneously starting a brand of clothing that charges a ridiculous amount of money. And this makes sense in what universe? Exactly. Sent1000 says, and like I said on this similar subject, if the max tax bracket for taxes is, let's say, 25%, the only way for a person to pay more is to increase their income. All right, let me read that again. If the max bracket for taxes is 25%, the only way for a person to pay more is to increase their income. I think the point he's making is that people who are the only way the government can increase its income is if the people it's taxing are actually making more money. And of course, the only way that's going to happen is if you lower the cost of production. The only way to really increase the wealth in a country is to lower the cost to produce the goods and services that everyone wants. If you force businesses to spend more to create their goods and services, like, by example, raising the minimum wage, then you force them to raise their prices, which means fewer people can afford them. And there's fewer goods and services to go around, especially among the extremely poor. If you lower the cost of production, then more resources are freed up for other business endeavors, and everyone can have more wealth. If for those that are more interested, check out my video, The Only Way to Improve the Economy. In any case, this is a pretty short stream, but like I said, it's a topic I wanted to make sure I had time to talk about, even if I didn't have time to make a traditional video on it. So be sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Give me your thoughts down there. If anyone wants to defend AOC, by all means, I'm open to hearing an argument in her defense. And as always, that is my 2 cents. Take it for what it's worth.